My friends, listen closely and listen with a heart that is ready to receive, because what I'm about to say is not ordinary talk. It's not casual advice. This is a divine instruction. This is a sacred charge to your soul. You were not created to drag your feet through this life defeated and discouraged. You were not placed on this earth to live like a beggar of hope, pleading for crumbs of blessings. No, you were made to walk in the boldness of faith. You were made to carry the light of certainty. You were made to live as if you are a magnet to miracles, because you are, yes, you heard me right. Act as if miracles are drawn to you, not because you are worthy on your own, but because the one who created you has placed his power inside of you. When God created you, he didn't create you empty. He placed inside you the force of belief, the seed of divine favor, and the authority to walk with expectation. And when you walk in expectation, when you rise up in the morning and declare, today something good is going to happen, today God is going to move for me, then you begin to activate a power that attracts the impossible. You become a magnet to miracles. But let me tell you something deep and unshakable. The reason so many people never see the miraculous hand of God is because they walk around acting like victims instead of victors. They speak words of defeat. They carry a posture of doubt. They expect pain more than they expect progress. They think miracles are for someone else, somewhere else, sometime later. But what if I told you that miracles don't come to the doubters? Miracles don't find the passive. They come to those who dare to believe while everything around them says it's over. You must act as if it is already done. That's the posture of faith. Faith is not blind foolishness, it is radical trust in the God who does the impossible. You got to walk through the storm as if the sun is already shining. You got to praise God in the drought as if the rain is on the way. You've got to step into that place of expectancy where you are no longer begging for miracles, you are welcoming them. Because when you align your heart with God, when you live like you are covered, chosen, and carried, miracles will find you. They won't have a choice. You will pull them in by the force of your faith. Do you think it's an accident when things shift out of nowhere for those who walk with God? Do you think it's luck when breakthroughs break open for the faithful? No. It is alignment. It is divine timing colliding with unwavering trust. It is the hand of God responding to a soul that refuses to shrink back in fear. You have to understand this. The spiritual world is moved not by emotion, but by faith. God doesn't respond to tears alone, He responds to trust. You must act as if you are a magnet to miracles, because that's how you invite the supernatural into your natural. That's how you draw in what eyes have not seen and ears have not heard. That's how you attract what logic cannot explain. Your faith is not just for comfort, it is a magnet for divine movement. And every time you choose to believe when you could doubt, every time you choose to rise when you could crumble, you are pulling miracles closer. Now, you might say, but I don't feel like a magnet. My life feels like a magnet to misery. And I say to you, feeling is not fate. Circumstance is not your compass. What you see is not the whole story. Some of the greatest miracles are born in the darkest nights. The seed doesn't look like the harvest, but it carries the full potential of it. You don't have to feel it to walk in it. You don't have to see it to expect it. You just have to trust that God is not finished with your story. Let me tell you this truth. The enemy of your soul wants to rob you of your magnetism. He wants to strip you of your confidence in God. He wants to silence your declarations, destroy your expectation, and drown you in discouragement. But you have authority to resist. You have the power to stand in the middle of the storm and say, I am not shaken because I know who holds the winds. You have the power to act as if the answer is already on the way, even while you're still waiting on the door to open. God doesn't move when we deserve it. He moves when we believe Him. He doesn't perform according to our perfection, but according to our posture. And when your posture is that of a magnet, miracles are pulled into your life. The blessing that was delayed starts running to you. The healing you've been praying for finds its way to your body. The peace you thought was lost settles over your home. But it all begins with your mindset. You must learn to train your spirit to expect good things, not in arrogance, but in assurance. You must program your thoughts to believe in the goodness of God, even in the valley. You must declare His power when nothing around you looks powerful. You must walk with a strange, radical confidence, not in yourself, but in the one who cannot fail. And let me be clear, it's not magic. It's not pretending everything is fine. It's not about ignoring pain or denying struggle. No, it's about walking through the fire with the unshakable conviction that you will come out refined, not destroyed. It's about waking up every day and declaring with power, today, I am a magnet to miracles because God is still on the throne. When you live like that, you don't chase miracles. Miracles begin to chase you. Let your steps be full of purpose. Let your prayers be saturated with boldness. Let your words carry life and not limitation. Every time you speak, you are either attracting or repelling. So speak like the blessing is already done. Speak like the answer is already being formed. Speak like your future is already unfolding in favor. Because in the Spirit, your words are magnets too. Speak defeat, and you attract more pain. Speak faith, and you attract the supernatural. And don't you dare disqualify yourself from the miraculous just because of your past. God does not use perfect vessels. He uses willing ones. He does not choose based on performance. He chooses based on purpose. If He's kept you breathing, He's still got miracles scheduled with your name on them. But you must come into alignment. You must rise up and start acting like the blessings are on the way. Act like the promotion is coming. Act like the healing is underway. Act like the peace is returning. Not because of who you are, but because of who your God is. Some people call it delusion. I call it divine faith. I call it spiritual authority. I call it walking in what you know, not what you see. Because we are not ruled by sight, we are led by faith. And when faith becomes your foundation, miracles become your reward. I've seen it, I've heard the testimonies, I've watched the impossible bow its head to those who refuse to quit. I've watched closed doors burst open because someone dared to keep knocking in faith. I've seen broken bodies restored, shattered minds made whole, relationships resurrected, and hopeless situations flipped by the power of God. And it always started with a decision to believe when belief made no sense. So I ask you today, what are you acting like? Are you walking around like someone the world has defeated? Or are you walking like someone who's already won in the Spirit? Are you acting like you are cursed? Or are you acting like the favor of God is chasing you down? Are you shrinking under pressure, or are you standing in the middle of it with your eyes lifted toward the heavens, declaring, this is not the end for me? The time has come to flip the script. The time has come to break the curse of average, of defeat, of hesitation. The time has come to put on the garment of expectation. The time has come to speak with boldness, walk with confidence, and believe with fire. The time has come to act like you are a magnet to miracles, because if you truly believe in the power of God, then that is exactly what you are. Your life is not small. Your calling is not minor. The battles you fought were not random. They were proof that you carry something the enemy fears. And the very fact that you are still standing is evidence that God is not through with you yet. The miracle is not somewhere out there in the distance. It's hovering, waiting for your faith to pull it in. You were never meant to wander through life unsure of your divine backing. There is a certainty, a holy confidence that comes from knowing that the Creator of the heavens and the earth is not distant. He is present. And when you walk with that awareness, you shift the very atmosphere around you. You begin to draw favor where there once was rejection. You begin to attract light in places others only see darkness. You must act, speak, move, and breathe as if miracles are magnetized to your obedience and faith. Understand this. Your alignment with God's will is not passive, it's magnetic. You are not just hoping for good things to happen, you are positioning your spirit to receive what was already written for you. And that's the key, not wishing, but positioning. You don't beg for the rain, you prepare the fields. You don't plead for the door, you position yourself with the key of faith. You don't cry for the light, you walk as if the dawn is breaking. When your spirit shifts from hoping to knowing, from doubting to declaring, miracles begin to shift into your realm. God is not withholding because He wants to punish you. Sometimes He delays to strengthen your spirit. Sometimes He waits until your faith matures enough to carry the weight of the blessing. And when you act like a magnet to miracles, you are saying to God, I am ready, I trust you, I believe. That belief sends a signal into the spiritual realm. It is the beacon that invites favor to find you, even when you're lost in a crowd. It is the cry that calls blessings by name, the sound that shifts heaven to earth. Some of you have been sitting in silence too long. You've allowed life to mute your expectations. You've become numb to the possibility of the extraordinary. But today, I speak life into your spirit. Wake up. Rise up. Shake off the rust of fear and stagnation. Begin again to walk with the audacity of one who knows that God is still writing their story. Speak like the mountain has already fallen. Praise like the answer is already here. Because the moment you act like a magnet to miracles, you will begin to attract what eyes have not seen and what hearts have not conceived. There is power in your posture. Not just physical posture, but spiritual posture. The posture of your heart. The stance of your soul. Are you bent over in fear, or are you standing in faith? Are you looking down in despair, or are your eyes lifted in divine expectation? God responds to those who rise in faith before the waters part. He responds to those who take the first step before the ground feels stable. When you posture yourself with confidence in God, you become a lightning rod for the supernatural. You may not know how, you may not know when, but you must know who. And when your faith is fixed on God alone, it creates a magnetic field of miracles around you. That's not religion. That's not ritual. That's revelation. You are a vessel designed to carry the impossible. You are a soul designed to walk in divine outcomes. And nothing, no setback, no betrayal, no delay can cancel what God has already appointed. All that's required is that you keep believing, keep walking, keep acting, as if every breath is another step toward breakthrough. There is a mystery in how God works, and that mystery is not meant to confuse you, it is meant to deepen your faith. You are not called to understand every step, but you are called to trust the one who orders those steps. When you act as if you are a magnet to miracles, you are stepping into agreement with the unseen. You are declaring that God's promises are more real than the pain you feel, that His power is more true than the facts in front of you, and that His timing is always perfect, even when your heart grows weary. And here is the truth many overlook. Miracles are not always loud. Sometimes they come wrapped in silence. Sometimes the miracle is the endurance to wait one more day without falling apart. Sometimes it's the favor hidden in a rejection, the protection hidden in a delay. God is not obligated to explain Himself, but He is faithful to fulfill what He has spoken. And if you live with that revelation, you begin to walk with a power that cannot be faked, a strength that makes others ask, how are you still standing? And you will know, it is not by might, not by strength, but by the presence of God surrounding your life. Acting like a magnet to miracles does not mean you walk in arrogance. It means you walk in alignment. You align your thoughts with truth, not trauma. You align your declarations with God's nature, not your emotions. You align your decisions with faith, not fear. And when you are in alignment with God, everything attached to your life begins to shift. Doors that were sealed begin to creak open. Hearts that were hardened begin to soften. Resources you couldn't reach begin to move toward you. Why? Because miracles are drawn to those who believe God is still in control. Do not underestimate the power of consistency. Many expect fireworks, but God often moves in the fire of quiet obedience. Miracles don't always begin with noise. They begin with the person who keeps showing up in prayer. The one who keeps forgiving, keeps serving, keeps trusting, even when the results are delayed. Every time you act with unwavering faith, you are creating space for the miraculous to take root. Like soil waiting for the rain, your consistency becomes the field in which God pours out His divine abundance. And if you ever doubt your value, if the world has convinced you that you're too broken, too forgotten, too ordinary, let me remind you that God never builds greatness on shallow ground. The deeper the trial, the higher the blessing. The longer the wait, the greater the glory. Do not despise the process. The pressure you feel is not there to crush you. It's there to shape you into someone who can carry what God is about to release. Miracles don't just require power, they require preparation. And you, right now, in this very moment, are being prepared. Do you know why the enemy attacks your identity? Because he knows if you ever realize who you truly are in God's sight, you will become unstoppable. If you ever stop looking at your reflection through the world's mirror and start seeing yourself through the lens of God's purpose, you will walk like someone who knows heaven responds when they speak. You will carry yourself like someone who expects supernatural solutions. You will no longer chase validation. You'll understand that divine favor is your birthright. You'll speak like someone who carries the presence of God, and everywhere you go, the miraculous will follow. This is the hour to wake up your spirit. This is the hour to silence the voices that told you you were too small, too late, too weak. God does not need a crowd to validate His work. He needs one believer with a surrendered heart. One soul who says, even if I don't see it yet, I'll still act like it's on the way. That kind of faith shakes foundations. That kind of faith shifts bloodlines. That kind of faith creates legacies that echo into eternity. And don't be fooled, the world will try to talk you out of it. They will say, be realistic. Lower your expectations. But God didn't call you to live realistic. He called you to live redeemed. He didn't instruct you to play it safe. He called you to walk on what others sink in. So stop letting fear disguise itself as wisdom. Stop allowing doubt to dress up as logic. There is no limit in God. His power is without borders, and if you align your life with His Word, your story will become one that others marvel at, not because of what you did, but because of what God did through your belief. And let us never forget, gratitude is the gatekeeper of the miraculous. When you learn to thank God before the miracle arrives, you unlock a higher dimension of favor. Gratitude in the waiting season is proof that you trust the one who controls the outcome. Thank God not just for what He's done, but for what He's about to do. Praise Him like the doors are already open. Worship Him like the storm has already passed. Because God is drawn to the heart that celebrates before the blessing arrives. That is the heart of a magnet. That is the spirit of one who attracts the miraculous. And now hear this deep truth. One that few speak, but every soul must embrace. Acting like a magnet to miracles is not about pretending you have it all together. It's about standing in your weakness with the confidence that God's strength is sufficient. It is about being honest with your struggles, but not enslaved by them. It's about being real with your pain, yet not ruled by it. Faith is not the absence of difficulty. It is the unshakable belief that God's power is present even in the middle of the storm. And when you carry that faith like fire in your bones, miracles cannot help but be drawn to your path. You must understand the spiritual law that governs this reality. Expectation sets the temperature of your atmosphere. If you expect defeat, life will echo your thoughts. If you expect stagnation, the world around you will comply. But if you dare to expect the hand of God, if you dare to rise each day with holy anticipation that something divine will intersect your ordinary, then you have aligned yourself with heaven's flow. God does not pour oil into vessels turned upside down. He looks for those who position themselves with open hands, open hearts, and eyes lifted upward. Let me speak to the one who feels invisible, to the one who thinks their prayers have gone unheard, their efforts unseen. God has not forgotten you. He is not blind to your tears nor deaf to your cries. Sometimes the silence is the sacred space where God is shaping you. Sometimes the waiting is the womb where greatness is being formed. The blessing you are waiting on is not being denied, it is being developed. And when you act as if it's already in motion, you align your spirit with its arrival. You are never called to live reactive. You were created to live prophetic, to declare what is not yet visible as though it were already manifested. That is not fantasy, that is faith. That is not pride, it is trust. God honors those who build the ark before the rain, who prepare the table before the guests arrive, who speak life while walking through the valley of death. And every time you do, you are not just surviving, you are drawing divine movement to your life. There is a sound in the spirit that only faith can make. It is the sound of someone walking through fire and still saying, God is with me. It is the echo of a voice that refuses to complain and instead whispers, I still believe. That sound shakes the unseen. That sound summons breakthroughs from the realm of the hidden into the light of the living. And when your soul produces that sound, not just in your prayers, but in your choices, you become a living invitation for God's power to be displayed. Do not let your current surroundings trick you into believing that this is the end. No pit is too deep, no night is too dark. God sees the fullness of your story, and He is not limited by the chapter you're in. Just because you haven't seen it yet doesn't mean it's not coming. Do not measure God's power by your present situation. Measure your situation by God's eternal power. When you do, you begin to act not from desperation, but from dominion. And that kind of faith becomes magnetic to transformation. Let me tell you, miracles don't arrive to entertain, they arrive to testify. They are not for show, they are for revelation. When God moves, it is to remind you and everyone watching that He is still supreme, still sovereign, still active. Your life is not just a personal journey, it is a platform for divine glory. The way you believe, the way you speak, the way you walk, it's all a signal to heaven and a message to the world. I know my God is able, and I'm living like it's already done. And hear me well, fear is a liar. Fear will tell you to wait until everything is certain. Fear will paralyze you in the presence of uncertainty. But faith is not the absence of uncertainty, it is the decision to trust God in the middle of it. Every step you take in faith silences fear. Every declaration you make in boldness exposes the lies of doubt. And every action you take as if the miracle is already yours ignites the path for it to arrive. This is your time to rise. This is your moment to shift the atmosphere. Not by effort alone, but by faith. By your deep, unwavering, relentless trust in the God who cannot lie and cannot fail. Act as if God is already turning things around, because in the realm of the unseen He is. Act as if the provision is already moving your way, because spiritually it is. Act as if the healing has already begun, because God has already spoken over your wholeness. Let your attitude reflect the assurance of God's promises. Let your walk reflect the power of His presence. Let your words reflect the clarity of His plan. Live like you are loved. Move like you are chosen. Wait like you are appointed. And act every single day like miracles are not only possible, they are inevitable. Not because of who you are, but because of who God is. The world may call it confidence, but those who walk in faith know it is something far deeper. It is conviction birthed in the furnace of prayer. It is certainty that grows not from comfort, but from communion with God. When you act like a magnet to miracles, it is not pride that carries you, it is surrender. A surrender so complete, so resolute, that even when the earth trembles and doors close and voices around you falter, your soul remains fixed like a tree planted beside still waters. Because you know that the same God who parts seas and raises valleys is guiding your steps even in the silence. And here is a truth the world often forgets. The miraculous begins inside before it manifests outside. The transformation begins in your spirit before it shows in your surroundings. That is why you must not wait for the evidence to believe. You must believe before there is evidence. You must choose to act like the storm is ending while the sky is still dark. You must speak like the chains are broken while the weight is still on your shoulders. That is not denial of reality, it is alignment with higher truth. God's truth. And when your internal world comes into alignment with the promises of God, your external world has no choice but to respond. Faith does not need an audience, it only needs agreement with the will of God. Sometimes God will isolate you so He can prepare you. He will quiet the noise around you so you can hear His voice above all. And in that place of stillness, when the world calls it failure, God calls it foundation. You are not being buried, you are being planted, you are not forgotten, you are being preserved. And the miracle that will rise from that soil will silence every doubt that tried to define your worth. You see, miracles are not always explosive moments. Sometimes they are gentle unfoldings. A door that opens softly but leads to a destiny you never imagined. A burden lifted slowly but surely until one day you realize you're free. Never despise the small beginnings. Never ignore the subtle signs, because what you call small, God calls sacred. And when you act like a magnet to miracles, you begin to see with new eyes. You no longer chase what is flashy, you follow what is faithful. And you recognize that sometimes the greatest miracle is peace in the middle of chaos, clarity in confusion, or strength when you thought you had nothing left. And listen, your miracle is not just for you, it's for those watching. For those wondering if hope is real. For those hanging on by a thread. Your faith becomes the evidence they need to believe that God still moves. That God still hears. That God still honors those who trust Him with everything. So carry your miracle with humility. Let your breakthrough preach louder than your words. Let your story become a beacon for others. Because when you act as if you are a magnet to miracles, you give permission for others to believe again. There's power in movement. Power in progress. Even when it's slow, even when it's silent. Some of the most powerful faith is expressed not in shouting, but in simply not giving up. In choosing to get out of bed when despair tells you to stay down. In choosing to smile when your heart aches. In choosing to speak life when your world feels dry. Every time you choose faith over fear, you are sending a message into the atmosphere. I am still expecting God to do what only He can do. And that expectancy draws the miraculous closer. You do not have to force what God has already promised. You only have to believe and align. There is no striving in divine flow, only surrender. And when your heart beats in rhythm with God's timing, what once seemed out of reach begins to come with ease. The favor that used to feel like a fight now feels like a fragrance that follows you. The doors you used to knock on now open before you arrive. This is the power of walking in the fullness of faith, living like you already carry the proof of what you've been praying for. But know this, your miracle may not look like you imagined, and that's the beauty of trusting God. Sometimes His yes is dressed in something unexpected. Sometimes His protection looks like a closed door. Sometimes His provision comes through people or paths you never considered. But every time, it is perfect. Every time, it is purposeful. And every time, it proves that God's wisdom far exceeds our understanding. So act not just as a magnet to blessings, but as a magnet to God's will. Because when you seek His will above all, the miracles that come will not just elevate your life, they will transform your soul. Faith is not passive, it is fierce. It is a fire that keeps burning when the winds of life try to blow it out. And when you act like a magnet to miracles, you are feeding that fire with every word you speak, every decision you make, every thought you choose to entertain. You are fanning the flame of belief that God is moving, God is speaking, God is answering. And the more you nurture that fire, the more clearly you will see the hand of God in every detail of your life. Listen closely, because this next truth will shake your soul awake. Miracles are not just events you witness, they are realities you walk in. You are not waiting on something magical to fall from the sky. You are carrying something divine inside you that is waiting to be unleashed by your faith. God has already placed the blueprint of breakthrough in your spirit. But it is your belief, your obedience, your alignment with God's voice that brings that breakthrough from the unseen into the visible. The miracle is not fair, it is buried within your willingness to act as if God is already moving on your behalf. And if you think the delay is a denial, you don't yet understand the depth of how God works. God delays not to punish, but to prepare. Every moment you think is wasted is actually a moment He is using to stretch your faith, sharpen your focus, and break off what cannot go with you into the next season. The silence is sacred. The waiting is not a void, it is a womb. The longer the wait, the deeper the root and the stronger the fruit. So stand still when you must, but stand still with power. Stand still with purpose. Because even when nothing is changing around you, something is always shifting within you when you trust God. Let me tell you something powerful. The way you talk is either repelling or attracting what God has for you. Your words are containers of spiritual force. They either carry expectation or they carry doubt. When you speak defeat, you make a home for failure. When you speak worry, you give fear a seat at your table. But when you speak the promises of God over your life, even when you feel broken, even when you're unsure, you are building a runway for the miraculous to land. Speak as if the door is opening. Speak as if the favor is already flowing. Speak as if the breakthrough is already scheduled, because it is. And don't be fooled by the comfort of the crowd. Some of the greatest miracles happen in isolation. God will pull you out from what is familiar so He can form you into what is powerful. He will separate you not to punish you, but to prepare you. And in that space where you feel unseen and unheard, heaven is leaning in. God is doing His deepest work when you feel the most hidden. So do not despise your season of separation. That's where the oil is pressed. That's where the clarity is birthed. That's where the fire of real faith is lit. When you begin to act like a magnet to miracles, you stop chasing validation and start standing in your God-given value. You stop begging for attention and start walking in intention. You become less concerned with applause and more obsessed with alignment. Because when your life becomes about pleasing God, miracles become your new normal. Favor follows those who follow God, not those who follow the crowd. And let me tell you, when God's favor marks your life, no man, no force, no system, no setback can stand against you. Now, you may be thinking, but I've made mistakes. I've failed too many times. Listen to me. God is not looking for perfection. He's looking for submission. He's looking for surrender. He's looking for someone who will rise from the ashes and say, even now I still believe. There is no failure too final for God to redeem. There is no detour too far for God to reroute. When you act like a magnet to miracles, you are not ignoring your past. You are handing it over to the one who can transform it into testimony. And believe me, God can do more with your surrender than you could ever do with your control. Faith without action is dormant. It's time to walk like you believe what you say. It's time to move as if the door is already unlocked. It's time to build while others mock, to prepare while others doubt, to praise while others panic. Because when your actions match your declarations, miracles manifest. You're not just hoping anymore, you're hosting the supernatural by the way you live, think, and respond to life. That is what separates those who witness miracles from those who walk in them daily. And here's another truth. The size of your miracle is often tied to the size of your risk. Safe faith sees little. Bold faith sees the impossible. Are you willing to take the step when there's no visible support? Are you willing to give when it doesn't make sense? Are you willing to stay when it's easier to run, or move when it's easier to stay comfortable? That's when God moves. When you step out of the boat, when you stretch past the limits, when you walk toward the unknown because you trust the one who already sees the other side. So I ask you, what would your life look like if you truly believed God was orchestrating every detail? How would you carry yourself if you knew beyond doubt that the delay you hate is the very thing God is using to protect your destiny? How would you speak if you were fully convinced that the door you need is about to swing open at the appointed hour? I'll tell you how you would speak with fire. You would walk with boldness. You would sleep in peace. And you would rise every day expecting something powerful to collide with your path. Your energy would shift, your presence would shift. You wouldn't be shaken by small storms because you would know they are only clearing space for something greater. That is what it means to act as if you are a magnet to miracles, not to be blind to reality, but to live with your spiritual eyes wide open, to see beyond what is and step into what could be. To act not according to fear, but according to faith in a God who has never failed and never will. Let this be your awakening. No more passive waiting, no more powerless prayers, no more living beneath the standard God has written for your life. Rise, declare, move, walk, align, and act like you are a magnet to miracles. Because by the will, mercy, and majesty of God you are. And now, let this truth pierce through every layer of doubt that has ever tried to settle in your heart. When you act like a magnet to miracles, you are not relying on emotion, you are operating from revelation. You are stepping out not because you feel strong, but because you know God is stronger. You are declaring hope not because your situation is perfect, but because God is perfect in all His ways. When everything around you says it's over, faith looks to heaven and says, "My God is still writing." That is the voice of someone who knows what it means to walk with authority under divine instruction. Too many live like they are at the mercy of the world, but you are not at the mercy of man, money, or circumstance. You are under the mercy of God. And that mercy is new every morning. That mercy goes before you and makes crooked paths straight. That mercy covers your past, empowers your present, and prepares your future. So why walk timidly? Why live like you are powerless? Why speak like you have no hope? When you know God is with you, every step becomes prophetic. Every choice becomes purposeful. Every breath becomes sacred. You were not made for survival alone. You were created for divine impact. Let your life become a sanctuary for the miraculous. Let your daily living become a testimony that God is real and active and moving through those who dare to believe. Walk into rooms and shift the atmosphere with your peace. Step into broken places and let your faith mend what fear tried to destroy. Speak into darkness and expect light to respond. Not because of who you are, but because of who your God is. Because you walk under the covering of the Most High, and nothing can touch you unless it is allowed by His wisdom for your growth and elevation. There is a level of faith that confuses the world, a level that cannot be explained by logic or emotion. It's the kind of faith that builds before there's a blueprint, that prays before there's a problem, that praises before there's a performance. That's the kind of faith God is calling you into. A faith that looks ridiculous to the flesh but irresistible to the spirit. A faith that doesn't just hope for miracles but hosts them, lives them, breathes them, carries them like fire, shut up in your bones. This is not the season to shrink. This is the season to stretch your vision, to stretch your expectations, to stretch your belief in what God can do through you. You've been thinking too small, praying too safe, dreaming too low, but God did not breathe life into you for you to live in limitation. God designed you with purpose, appointed you with power, and positioned you for influence. You are not weak. You are not random. You are not invisible. You are chosen, guided, watched over, and carried by the same force that holds the galaxies together. So act like it. Stop begging for what God has already given you authority to walk in. Stop crying at closed doors when God is building a new one for you to open. Stop rehearsing your pain and start releasing your potential. What happened to you is real, yes. But what God is doing in you is more real, more powerful, and more lasting. You are not defined by what tried to break you. You are defined by the one who kept you breathing when the weight felt too heavy to bear. And that is why you must move forward not with fear, but with fire. Let the world call you foolish. Let the doubters whisper. Let the skeptics mock. It changes nothing. Because when you walk in God's purpose, what others say cannot stop what He has set in motion. You don't need everyone to believe in you, just you need to believe in what God has spoken over your life. And when you do, the impossible starts to look small. The mountains start to look movable. The barriers start to look like blessings in disguise. That's the vision of someone who lives with heaven's perspective. And don't you dare give up, because the process is painful, growth is painful, change is uncomfortable, but stagnation is far more dangerous. What God is birthing in you requires stretching, surrender, and sometimes solitude. But oh, the fruit it will produce. Oh, the doors that will open. Oh, the lives that will be touched because you chose to believe when it was hardest to do so. The miracle is not just what you will receive, it is who you are becoming in the waiting. The faith that is forming in your spirit is more valuable than any material reward. So act like you carry something sacred, because you do. Act like you were born for more, because you were. Act like the heavens are watching every move you make, because they are. Act like your voice has power, because it does. And above all, act like the presence of God surrounds you, because that, my friend, is the unshakable truth. Miracles are not rare for those who live surrendered. They are not distant for those who walk in obedience. They are not accidental. They are attracted to trust, to action, to hearts that say, even if I don't see it today, I will act like it's already been dispatched from the throne of God. That is not delusion. That is dominion. That is not emotional hype. That is spiritual alignment. That is not ego. That is evidence of a soul fully anchored in God. So walk out of this moment differently, talk differently, think differently. Decide today that you will not live one more hour in fear, in hesitation, in half-hearted faith. Decide that from this point forward, every step you take will echo into the heavens. I believe in the power, mercy, and nearness of God. And when you do that, your life will become a magnet to miracles, not once, not occasionally, but continually, perpetually, powerfully, because God rewards those who act on faith.